Hey there, Cancer Ascendants. This is a weekly forecast taking you from the 13th to 19th of October. This is an important week because we've got both Venus and Mars in their own signs. You know, Venus has just gone into the sign of Libra, and so she rules Libra, and she's really happy in the sign of Libra. And to me, this is a real turning point in terms of us feeling really at home with our more peaceful and connected selves. We've also got Mars already well installed in the sign of Scorpio, and he's a ruler of Scorpio. And so we've got this very balanced masculine and feminine, where it feels like all of a sudden we are coming into a much better balance between moving forwards and taking action. It's very Mars based, and being more reflective and connected, which is more of Venus. In this week ahead, we've got so many different things going on, including Pluto going direct, which I think is bringing us also into a sense of maybe quiet poise and quiet control, where we feel a lot more strength and a lot more grace. So these all look really good. However, we've also got two big, strong oppositions. One is Venus in opposition to Neptune, and the other is the Sun coming into opposition with Chiron. And that's likely to stir up quite a few things. So the themes here, I think, are very much about where we might be aching for love. I'll explain why in a second, and I'll like piece it out in your chart, and how we might fear being seen, and what we can do to unpack that a little bit. You know, also with the opposition between Venus and Neptune, there's often this very strong sort of feeling of savior, or needing to be saved, you know, like the hero and the victim. And so I do think there's some really big stuff there for us to explore. So anyway, if you're new to this channel, my name's Louisa, welcome. And before I just go any further, I just want to thank everybody that sponsors my channel and all the different ways that you do, whether it's from a donation or also from being in my membership. I really love that. Thank you so very much. You're very, very generous. Anyway, this is my big question I'm starting with, because I think by the end of this short forecast, you have a much bigger sense of what might be going on for you. So this is the question. If I dropped the story of being the victim or the hero, what truth might emerge? So that's what I'm holding on to. Now, if I apply this to your chart, now I should just say, as we're looking at this chart, these are ascendant forecasts. I use a Western tropical whole sign model. But if when you look at your birth chart on your charting system, and you see that you've got Cancer and Leo in your first house, and the first house is this section here, then it's also important that you listen to Leo, because you'll get something from there. So I hope that explains that. Anyway, so we're going from Venus being moving into Libra. That's the first big motion of this week ahead. And as we're coming into this story, we've also got the moon going through our first house. As we come to the end of this week, you'll see that both Venus and the moon are coming into a conjunction, and Mercury and Mars are about to really come into their conjunction. So, yeah, the big question, if I drop the story of being a victim or a hero, what healing truth might emerge? So with that, I'm really thinking into this very exact opposition. It's exact on the 14th between Venus and Neptune. Venus is also still just in an opposition to Saturn, which she was in last week. And that served to slightly disconnect us from people that we were, you know, maybe we're close to. It can bring up a feeling of not being good enough and very undeserving. And so if you think about it, as we're starting this week with a slight taste of undeserving energy coming up, it's not to say that you are at all. It's just that you might be remembering times when you've been undeserving, and where you felt undeserving, or where you felt that somebody has made love very conditional, you know, and put sort of pressure on you. What's also interesting to observe as well is that Venus is in your fourth house, which is about the home, and Neptune is very much in the top spot about your career, about your output, about how you're seen in the world, your legacy, so to speak. And with this, we often get this victim savior thing. Neptune at the top can show where we've got idealized ideas about the hero. Maybe there's someone that you've been pinning hopes on. Maybe there is somebody who's being the hero to you, that's like keeping the heart alive. And it feels like you've got someone out there doing things for you in the real world. Or maybe you feel like you've got to be this huge hero to save people, and it's something that's really going on. But with this Venus and Neptune in opposition, it feels like we can't trust everyone. There's a message of how can I trust people? It reminds us of rejections, in particular rejections where we have felt great levels of disappointment and confusion, in particular where we might also have gone into a protection, where we've protected ourselves. This can really bring up a lot of victimhood. And across the 4th and the 10th house, it's really showing, first of all, big parent issues, that can come to the fore, but in particular parent issues whereby it's still playing out in our grown-up lives. And so Venus here, I think, is indicating that you're really wanting to connect and really feel connected at home, really feel connected in love, and really get that sense that you matter. And yet it feels like in the outer world, there's a lot of illusions, possibly deceit, possibly lies, things that don't quite match up. And so that feeling of not being safe is emphasized. Now, as we go through this week, Pluto's also going direct on this day as well, and Pluto's going to go direct in your 8th house, which is interesting because the 8th house is a place where we can feel very empowered to move on to the next level in our world. We can feel a lot more steady to take the next step. And so Pluto going direct, I think, will reinforce our feelings of certainty about what we do know and what we don't know. And I think that's very helpful. And you can see that Pluto is tying in beautifully with Venus and also with Neptune in the 12th house. Now, these are really working with ancient stories. The 8th house has a lot to do with family history, and the 12th has a lot to do with our unconscious minds and what's been remembered, a lot of memories. I remember when I was going through my Uranus opposition, and my Uranus is in my 12th house. Uranus is like an antenna into our unconscious mind, and lots of old painful memories were filtered into my mind when that was happening. So I know that this grand trine is most likely sort of bringing up a lot of ancient garbage. I don't mean garbage, but a lot of ancient stuff that's really wanting to come up to be healed, and to be released. So that's something that's, ongoing this week. Now, at the same time, Mars and Mercury are going to make a trine to the North Node. And they're also coming into a trine with Jupiter. So we've got this lovely, beautiful grand trine here as well. And that is really, so we've got these 2 grand trines. One saying there's a lot of old stuff coming up to be shifted. And then this one, from the 1st to the 5th and to the 9th, is really encouraging you to trust in yourself, that you're expanding beyond what you ever thought was possible, where there's a lot of freedom in changing your mind and expanding your perception of what is. There's possibly a feeling of needing to go away and travel a little bit as well, and to learn more. And then Mars and Mercury here, especially towards the end of the week, as they're coming more and more into a conjunction, they're really emphasizing your need to do something creative. So whatever is going on behind the scenes to do with victimhood and possibly being a hero as well, like which of those roles are you playing, or are you playing them both at the same time? To me, it's resolved through you making a conscious decision to use your creativity to expand yourself beyond the old stories, and to carry on learning and moving beyond your childhood situation. And that's what is really turning it around. Now, coming up towards the end of the week, and I'll just show you what this chart is looking like. I was already there, actually. You'll see that the sun, which is already in the 4th house, is moving into an opposition with Chiron. And the sun, like if you watched my video last week, you'd have known that we had Pluto, Chiron, and Jupiter in a grand square with Mercury. Now, Mercury's moved out of that way, and now the sun has replaced it. And so we've got this grand square scenario going on. with the sun in a square to Pluto, in a square to Jupiter, and also in this opposition. I'm going to really sort of talk to this one really, because the sun in an opposition to Chiron can show where we are almost in attack of our identity. There's something painful about our identity. So you might choose to ask yourself, when I'm holding on to a fixed idea about who I am, it's actually painful for me. It's causing more difficulty. So for instance, if you've got a long-term story about yourself and how you've been a victim, and how you've been victimized, and how people have been using their power over you, the story that holds you as the victim, and this is really held at home, you know, anywhere where you're holding the identity of being the victim at home, or potentially the victim here in your career, that story is harming you now. And so that's also playing into this grand trine. To free yourself from this, I really see it's about using your creativity, making a conscious decision to use it, and allowing yourself to go through some very personal changes. But let's go back to this story again and see if anything else is moving. So if I drop the story of being the victim or the hero, what healing truth might emerge? I think this is the healing truth, because the North Node in the sign of Pisces is absolutely about healing. And this healing truth is taking you further into the ninth house. The ninth house is that place of adventure, spiritual awakening. It's a place of religion. It's a place of beliefs. And it's also a place where we want to broaden all of our horizons, you know, where we don't want to stick in a story because it feels like a cage around us. And with Jupiter in your first house as well, that's also a time when we're shaking off our old ideas about ourselves. And so to me, this Mercury and Mars conjunction that's coming up, it will be exact as we're going into the next week. But Mars and Mercury, I think, are in a very, very strong position here. You know, they're really showing you that you're taking a decision in your body and in your mind. So it's reflected in two different ways. It's not just something you believe. It's something that is acted out in your body, you know, so you're really feeling all of the sensations of your decisions and your beliefs. But this is the thing that is turning you around. And so if you've got an idea of learning, using your spiritual beliefs, learning more about religion or whatever is floating about. I mean, politics also comes in this part of the chart as well, as does legal stuff. So it might be that you're making a legal decision and a political decision or a philosophical decision. This is a place of much higher learning and context. And it's also a place where we might even drop our old ideas and maybe just question, well, how do I actually know that that is true? So there's a lot going on there with that great trine, that grand trine. And so what becomes possible when I stop trying to save or be saved? So that's an interesting question here. And again, I'm going back to Neptune and Venus and the Sun and Chiron. You know, they're really working between the 4th and the 10th house. Both of them are in the 10th house up here. And so to me, you might ask yourself, where have I tried to save things at home? Where in my childhood was I trying to save people and make myself a victim in the process? You know, for instance, some people come into this life with a very strong scapegoat energy. And often the family dynamic that the rest of the family are in would fall apart if that scapegoat wasn't there as the buffer. Or for instance, if you're the black sheep or if you're the outsider, you know, the rest of the family might well fall apart. So the idea of you may well have been saving your family simply by accepting that you were the black sheep or the scapegoat. Or you might have been trying to save the family by shaking people's awareness out of this, you know. So this is something I think that's coming up for you to sort of examine and, you know, make a decision on. I think in the process of the examination, you'll realize if you have been. It's funny, isn't it, how you can be a victim but also be a hero, also be a savior at the same time. To me, they're in a really, really delicate balance, and I think that's the difficulty with this, is that you can be both powerful and possibly weak, and in your weakness you can actually be strong, and in your strength you could actually be quite weak. So there's all these paradoxes coming up. But really in terms of answering this, what truth might emerge and what becomes possible, I think you're freeing yourself from the past in such a way that you move with confidence into the future, really carving out a new direction, one that has a much more elevated frame of reference, that is very different from what you were experiencing as a child, the usual narrative. And with that, you become much more aligned, your alignment to what you're doing and the impact that it has. Are you, like, what will be the overall feeling that you're producing in the world? We never know how far our actions reach others, but to me, this is about you getting into an alignment in this week ahead that is felt far and wide. So there you have it. If this reading spoke to you, then come and join membership. I do a Monday to Friday forecast and also weekly forecasts for love, relationships, connection, career, money, and ambition for all 12 signs of the zodiac. Or if you'd like me to dive in and explore your chart on a much deeper level, then just book a session with me. All of my details are below in the links and also on my channel page. Thanks for joining me, and catch you next time. Bye for now.